I'm Dr. William Adams. I'm a professor of history here at the University of Texas at Brownsville. When I graduated with my bachelor's in history and English from Central State University in Oklahoma, I was just turning 20, and the Vietnam War was on, and I joined the Navy at that time. And then later, when I finished my naval training, I couldn't believe it when back then we had over 1,000 ships in the Navy, and I was assigned to the Forrestal. I had known that ship from the time I was 11 years old. I first went on it in 1957. I was a Navy brat at a dependent school in Naples, Italy, and the Forrestal sailed into the Bay of Naples. And it steamed in looking very magnificent, and then even more amazed when it comes steaming into Brownsville for end its life here, being dismantled at the breaker yard here. When the Forrestal sailed in through the jetties and up the channel at Port of Brownsville, I was there at the jetties. Still a proud sight. I mean, the ship is magnificent through its sheer size. Now, it looked a little sad, but you know, it had looked sad when I saw when it came into the shipyard at Norfolk in 1967 after the fire. The fire's heat was so intense that the barrels of the guns had melted and were hanging like elephant trunks down the side, and holes all through the deck. I took advantage of my GI Bill. I went and got my master's and doctorate in history. That was in North Dakota. Now, just when I was finishing up the doctorate there, Australia was very active in recruiting teachers at that time. So my wife, our two children, we moved to a small city outside Melbourne, Australia, and liked it very much. And my kids have talked about it ever since. They couldn't have been raised in a more beautiful community. When we left there, we went to the Solomon Islands, actually Guadalcanal, and I taught there at a all-native school. After that, I was looking to return home because we wanted our children to go to high school in the States, college in the States. I remember at the time there was a sign just as you came into Brownsville, population 80,000. Well, that's a long time ago. We settled in very easily. When I had this opportunity to go to China and teach for a year, 1999 to 2000, very pleased to do so, and taught at Henan Normal University in central China. When I came back in 2001, Cipriano Cardenas was chair of the Modern Language Department, and he was very keen to introduce Chinese as one of their languages, being the most spoken language in the world. I think a total of 13 or 14 Chinese professors from Henan University have come over here to teach for the year. And we have sent about 5 of our graduate students or professors there to teach. A book I wrote while I was in China was Remembering Xinxiang, and I think I probably enjoyed writing this as much as any book. You know, it was a happy time in my life. I wanted to tell the reader about the city I was staying in, which I call the poor man's Paris. It's beautiful, but not wealthy. First one I did was a portrait of a border city, Brownsville, Texas. Wrote this with my colleague Tony Knopp. It's not so much historical. We wanted to give the reader a glimpse of the city as it was the time we wrote it. This is 15, 20 years ago. Another book I did, and this is a result of teaching military history here. You know, when we started getting ROTC candidates, we started offering military history. And it's kind of a project I undertook with some of my students, where I'd send them out to find a World War II vet here in Brownsville or Harlingen, go out and interview them, and eventually we compiled this into a history of Valley Vets. Well, later we did Valley Vets 2. This continued with my students in military history class. Now, 7 years after that, I managed to get another sabbatical or faculty development leave, and that's when I spent a whole year traveling around Asia, East Asia, spending a month in each country and writing a story about it. And that led to my book, Night Song and Other True Tales of the Orient.